When my girlfriend and I finally got the keys to our new home, it felt like the start of the life we'd been dreaming of. A place that was ours, perfect size, perfect location, and the perfect little life we'd been planning. We even had Bella, our rescued cat, padding around the place like she knew she belonged there. But there was one detail that threw off the picture-perfect move-in fantasy: the house to our right. It wasn't abandoned exactly, but it might as well have been. Whoever owned it had started renovations and then just stopped. The backyard fence was gone, half replaced, but never finished, leaving our back garden open to theirs. And theirs was open to whoever felt like wandering in. Behind that property was another house, and from what we could tell, a handful of young guys lived there. Every now and then, we'd see them cutting across the abandoned yard, slipping through like it was a shortcut to the street. At first, we didn't think much of it. Maybe they knew the owner. Maybe they had permission. Then came our first night. We were sitting in our garden, enjoying the warm evening air, just taking in our new home. Out of habit, I glanced toward the row of houses behind ours. That's when I saw him, a man, standing in a dark window, just staring. He wasn't trying to hide it. No shame, no subtlety. His face was blank, no smile, no frown, no curiosity even, just a vacant, unblinking stare. The room behind him was completely dark, making him look like some figure cut out from the shadows. We told ourselves he was just curious about the new neighbors. But when half an hour passed and he was still there, still staring, we decided to head inside. The next few days were normal. I went to work. My fiancé kept unpacking. We got comfortable. Then one night, we were back outside in the garden, talking under the stars, when we heard the sound of wood scraping. We looked up. 3 men were standing in the gap where the unfinished fence was. Just standing there, watching us. The youngest, I maybe late 20s, had a large bag slung over his shoulder. He offered us stolen dishwashing tablets, of all things. We laughed awkwardly, declined, and eventually they walked away. But what stayed with me wasn't the weird offer. It was how casually they entered our garden, like they had every right to be there. And it didn't stop there. They started showing up more often. Always through that open fence, always without warning, and always with that same unnerving boldness. We were both only 20 years old, and it was hard not to feel like they were intentionally trying to intimidate us, especially since we were 2 young women living alone. One afternoon, while I was cleaning the front room, 2 police officers walked through our garden and into the abandoned property. They lifted the fence, poked around, then left without saying a word. It was odd, but I didn't think much of it. Until a few days later, when the police came to our door. They told us the guys behind us had been evicted for antisocial behavior, and not just toward us, but toward other neighbors too. We felt relieved. Maybe now, things would finally calm down. For a while, they did, until the day I was in the bath and heard a loud bang outside. I threw on some clothes and found my girlfriend in the spare room, phone in hand, recording. She told me a man we'd never seen before had been pointing up at our bedroom window. Then, as soon as she noticed him, he ran toward the house. He tried our door handle. Then he ducked back into the abandoned garden, shoved the broken fence up, and started banging on all the windows of that empty house. We called the police. They watched the video, took a statement, and left. No answers, no explanation. A few nights later, we woke to the sound of whistling. Not just any whistle, the kind of slow, taunting whistle men use to harass women. It was to 16 a.m., then came tapping on our window. We froze, checked our cameras, nothing recorded. Whoever it was left shortly after, but we didn't sleep that night. We went to my mom's the next day. When we came back the following morning, we found our Ring doorbell on the ground. The SD card was gone. The police told us to lock everything. They even admitted the camera removal might mean someone was planning something. The harassment kept going, whistling, banging, standing in our garden at night. Then it escalated again. One night, While watching the live feed from our camera, we saw him, a man in a black mask, hood up, standing in our garden with his arms spread wide, like he was imitating Jesus on the cross. He tilted his head, stared right at our bedroom window, then walked across the street and stood there for 30 minutes. We called the police again. They shrugged, said staring at a house wasn't illegal. Weeks passed, and the pattern repeated. Strange noises, masked men with flashlights peering in through our windows at nearly 3 a.m. One of them holding something that looked like a crowbar. We have cameras now. We record everything, but the police haven't stopped it. And every time I look out the window and see him standing there, staring, I know exactly what he's trying to do, and it's working. When I first met him, I honestly thought I'd won the lottery. He had that kind of charm that didn't feel forced, warm eyes, a voice that was always just low enough to pull you in, and that crooked little smile like he was letting you in on a secret no one else knew. We met at a mutual friend's birthday party. The music was loud, people were laughing, and I was halfway through a drink when he slid into the empty seat beside me. It took maybe 5 minutes before we were in the middle of a conversation like we'd been friends for years. I was laughing so hard my cheeks hurt. Before the night was over, he called me Sunshine, said it just fit me. I thought it was adorable, like something from a romantic movie. The next few weeks felt like something out of one, too. We started spending nearly every day together. He'd walk me home, send me good morning texts before my alarm even went off, make playlists of songs he swore sounded like me. He'd slip his arm around me in crowded rooms, tell me I was safe with him, and for a while, I believed it. But here's the thing. Being protected and being controlled can look almost identical. Until you feel the difference. It began with little things. He'd casually ask where I was going, who I was meeting. It didn't feel strange at first. Boyfriends care, right. But soon, the tone shifted. The questions became sharper. If I didn't reply to a text fast enough, my phone would blow up with messages. Where are you? Who's there? Why aren't you answering? And then, I started noticing him. Everywhere. One afternoon, I met an old friend for coffee, someone I hadn't seen in months. We were catching up when her eyes flicked toward the window. She leaned in and whispered, "Isn't that your boyfriend?" I turned, and there he was, across the street, phone in hand, pretending to scroll. But his gaze never left me. When I brought it up later, he just smiled like I was overreacting. I was in the neighborhood. Thought I'd surprise you. At first, I told myself it was sweet. Just a coincidence. But the coincidences started stacking up. I'd leave work and spot his car parked 2 blocks away. I'd run into the grocery store for a quick errand and see him at the end of an aisle, pretending to look at cereal boxes. Once, while shopping for a friend's birthday gift, I got a text. "Blue dress looks nice on you. Sunshine." My stomach dropped. I hadn't told him where I was. I scanned the store and there he was, leaning casually near the entrance, watching me. He smiled when our eyes met, that same crooked smile I used to think was charming. Things escalated after I told him we needed some space. That night, he showed up at my apartment, crying and begging, telling me I was his whole world. I didn't let him in. The next morning, there were flowers on my doorstep and a note tucked into the bouquet. "Sunshine, you can't block the sun forever." That same evening, I came home late and immediately knew something was wrong. My living room light was on. I was certain I'd turned it off before leaving. Everything looked exactly as I'd left it, except for one thing. On the coffee table sat a framed picture of us. It had been moved, just slightly, tilted toward the couch. I told myself maybe I'd bumped it earlier in the week. A few days later, my phone buzzed in the middle of the night. It was a string of photos, dozens of them. Me, walking to class. Me, at the grocery store. Me, sitting in my car at a red light. Some were taken from a distance. Granny, almost like surveillance shots. Others were so close I could see the reflection of his phone in his own shadow. I didn't reply. An hour later, one final message came through. "Sunshine, you're making this harder than it needs to be." That was when I started staying with friends. I changed my number, deleted every social media account. For a while, it felt like I'd shaken him until a friend sent me a screenshot. A random, faceless Instagram account with no posts and no followers had been watching her stories. Its profile picture, the blue dress I'd worn the day he texted me from the store. Eventually, the messages stopped, the sightings slowed. But they never completely went away, not in my mind. Even now, years later, if I'm walking alone and hear footsteps behind me, that same icy panic floods my chest. My pace quickens. My heart starts to pound. Because if there's one thing Sunshine taught me, it's that the people who call you their light are sometimes the ones hiding deepest in the shadows. It was supposed to be nothing more than a quick getaway. Just me, my husband, and a quiet little Airbnb in Michigan, far enough from the noise of everyday life to finally exhale. The house sat at the end of a narrow gravel road that crunched under the tires as we pulled in. It was the kind of place you might see in an old postcard, white siding that had weathered a few too many winters, faded floral curtains in the windows, mismatched furniture on the porch, and that faint unmistakable smell of cedar drifting out when the door opened. The owner, a man in his early 60s with kind eyes and a slow, measured way of speaking, greeted us at the door. He wore a thick knit sweater despite the mild temperature. After a quick tour, he handed us the keys and said, "If you need anything, don't hesitate to text me." His tone was warm, but there was something in his eyes, a flicker I couldn't quite place. That first night was perfect. We cooked a simple dinner, opened a bottle of wine, and sat on the porch until the last bit of sunlight dissolved into black. Out there, with nothing but the sound of the lake lapping against the shore, and the occasional croak of a frog, it was easy to forget the world existed beyond this little stretch of shoreline. The next morning was when things shifted. I opened the front door to let in some fresh air. That S when I saw it, a single playing card lying in the middle of the porch, face up, the Joker. It wasn't just any Joker, either. The colors were faded, and the edges were frayed like it had been handled a lot. The jester's smile was oddly sinister, his painted eyes sharp. I figured maybe the owner's grandkids had been playing cards out here and dropped one. Without thinking much about it, I tossed it in the trash and moved on. That night, as we were getting ready for bed, my husband went outside to make sure the car was locked. When he came back in, he was holding something between his fingers. Another Joker card. This one was pristine, glossy, clean, no creases. It had been tucked neatly under the windshield wiper. We both chuckled nervously. Creepy? Yes. But we reasoned it was probably just some local kid messing with the city people who rented the lake house. The third night killed the joke. It was close to midnight when we heard it. A soft, deliberate tap 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 on the front door. We froze. We hadn't invited anyone over. No one even knew we were here. My husband moved slowly toward the door and pressed his eye to the peephole. I saw the blood drain from his face. "There's someone standing there," he whispered. I crept up beside him and looked. A man stood motionless on the porch, tall, thin, wearing a filthy gray hoodie with the hood up. His head was tilted down just enough that the shadow concealed his face. In his right hand was another Joker card. We didn't open the door. We didn't move. For what felt like an eternity, he just stood there. Then, in a slow, deliberate motion, he crouched, placed the card on the doormat, and stepped backward. Without a sound, he melted into the darkness beyond the porch light. We locked every door, every window, checked them twice. We sat up in bed, fully clothed, listening for footsteps. Neither of us slept. The next morning, I texted the owner. I kept my message short, Do you know anything about someone leaving playing cards at the house? His reply came within minutes. Don't engage with him. I'll take care of it. No explanation. No name. Just that. Something in my gut told me that was our cue to leave. We packed quickly and were on the road before noon. But, as we drove away, I couldn't shake the prickling sensation at the back of my neck, the kind you get when you read being watched. I kept glancing at the side mirror, half expecting to see a gray hoodie following us down the narrow road. Hours later, when we finally pulled into our driveway at home, I felt relief wash over me. We unpacked, tossing clothes into the laundry. I reached into my suitcase for a sweater, and that's when I saw it. Tucked neatly between two shirts, lying face up. A Joker card, the same crooked smile staring back at me. If that gave you chills, hit like and subscribe. You don't want to miss what's next.